Hey, welcome to another episode of This Life in Tech, episode 173. I am Jason.
I'm Dan.
I'm TK. I don't even know what's going on. I just.
I like that way better as your intro, man. That's way better than still the bad guy. I like that because it implies bad guy. It implies it, right?
Yeah. Speaking of that, when we were, with the particular conversation we were having over text, you like my thing? Well, clearly it does take a doctor in order to be able to see the sarcasm.
Well, listen, man.
You got this cat, TK, that I was his chair, caught him plagiarizing, and he was also making up his data. So instead of the school doing the right thing, they just removed me as his chair. I didn't even know.
No, I remember that because that's what soured you on the whole experience. I remember you.
Yeah. I mean, it was basically like, I'm done. Well, he happens to be working for a company where one of our other mutual doctoral friends is at. And he's been telling us these things. Well, he posted on LinkedIn that he was let go, and I said, "Oh, what a shame." And so Pete says in our text message, "Do I detect sarcasm?" And I go, "Well, it doesn't take a doctor to see that." Oh, wait, maybe it does, because the other guy didn't. He didn't see it. He's like, "Oh, it's going to be character building and all these kind of things." And I'm like, guess you didn't get what I meant.
Yeah. I saw that. That's the guy. I saw that you were lamenting that. And I was like, oh, it's probably one of Dan's classmates or so. I didn't know the full background of that. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's a big problem. Yeah. I raised a lot of hell about that.
Yeah.
Look, man, you have to be able to entertain a certain level of fuckery and buffoonery in life. And sometimes, well, listen, a lot of times it's entertaining. But there's a certain line where you're like, dude, reasonable people can agree this isn't right. That wasn't right. There wasn't a single thing about any of that was right.
It devalues the integrity of y'all's degrees.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's,
in a way, yeah. And the thing is, like, I could tell that this cat was making up stuff. I mean, he happened to be doing it on open source intelligence research, which I know a little bit about. And then on top of that, he one of the pieces that he had written in there was about MySpace, and that people were extremely likely, according to this article, to put 4 of their identifying factors on social media. And the citation was from I don't remember the exact, but it was like 2002.
Yeah.
And I went, MySpace wasn't around in 2002, neither was Facebook. So I looked at the source. The article was published in 2002, but what it was doing is it was referring to a census survey about people that would put stuff into the sweepstake cards used to be in the mall, and they would put their personal identifiable information in that because they didn't have this. And I'm going, this guy is just making up the words and putting in citations thinking no one's going to read it. So I caught him on that, and then when he actually got to that I gave him a second chance. I'm like, all right, I think everyone deserves a chance to fail, everyone deserves a chance to redeem. He was now on his redeeming, and he did it again, though, with the real data. So I'm going, this looks way too falsified data. Like, I said, I want to see all of the responses.
Mm-hmm.
Silence.
Oops.
And then I asked again. And he goes, oh, well, I'll have to see if I can find it. I'm like, well, we can't move forward until this happens. And then waited again, and I submitted another claim basically to the school at that time, to the chair of the program. And then all of a sudden I was just removed.
Well, lest anybody watches this in the future, if you don't know, it's immediately apparent to people that have been paying attention when you haven't done the work. Okay, so here's an easy analog, right? We've all done a good measure of physical training in some form or fashion, right? And so when a person walks up to you and claims that they can do some physical feat, okay, and then you actually ask them to do the physical feat, you're going to find out real fucking quick if they prepared or not, right? It's immediately obvious. And that's how cheating is. It's immediately obvious. You don't think it is.
Do you guys remember the old Saturday Night Live skit where Bill Murray's playing an out-of-shape Hercules?
Yes.
Then he comes up and he's like, well, demonstrate some skill. I will gladly do that after 2 weeks of vigorous calisthenics, and it's like, yeah, I got you.
Yeah.
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 And I think people forget, especially like when you're doing your doctorate, the people that are on your committee are also subject matter experts in that area. Like they know what this is. So when they know what it is and you don't properly do the work, it's just like Jason mentioned that we're already there. We already know where some of these things should go because we've been studying it. And I'm going, this cat just.
It's not that you're subject matter experts in the technical part. It's that you've already walked this path, and you've successfully put the bricks down to make the path and make it work, right? And if people don't want to accept mentorship to be successful, where are they going to be?
Yeah, right.
Right? They're going to be getting fired from their job and having you goof on them, and they're not smart enough to know they're being goofed on.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, because they're
exactly.
not a real doctor either. They're now they just have a piece of paper which is worth less than like the dentist.
Well, see, listen though, this is because I kind of left over this. This is what caused me to start leaving too. I don't know that he was ever awarded the degree, so him claiming to be a doctor actually is a problem. I mean, it's not this. There's no legal recourse like if you're pretending to be an MD. Like there's legal recourse for that for impersonating a medical doctor. We don't have that, and I don't know that I care to that level, but it should be pointed out that.
Well, I would submit just like anything else. That potential employer is going to run a background on him, and educational qualifications or anything you claim in your resume, they have the right to go check.
Yeah, sure,
right?
sure.
I would say in today's world, they're free to go look it up.
Well, and that's an easy call to the registrar.
In mine case, I know that when I last several points, they actually did get that information from all of the places where I earned my degree from. Because with Capital, they now everything's on a portal. But I wind up getting, because I also happen to be in that portal, I get a notification that my record was pulled.
Yeah. Right.
It's like a clearinghouse.
Well,
that's the purpose of it, right? I mean, that's like you're saying, hey, I'm a doctor. Well, let's go figure out where they really are or not.
Well, and exactly. And part of what I like about the academic environment to kind of balance this out, like everything I apply for, even grants, I have to provide my transcripts. Like you're not faking that because there's a seal on it. Like you could fake it, but the depth you would have to go to fake it, I don't know why. I don't know how you would actually.
It's easier to fake in the 70s, pre-database, pre-large electronic database, and getting a record put into the records office, while shady probably wasn't the end of the earth as far as depth of difficulty, but now it goes back to your privacy and security discussion. I feel it's like there are certain things that if you're going to be out there in the world claiming that you are, that should be public record.
Well, no, exactly. Well said. So what I was going to say, and this is kind of a really interesting segue. We'll see where this goes. So for me, in part of this process, I make all my publications, all my presentations, basically everything on my CV except for my personal information, public through my website. So anybody can go see my let's say my history of academic work, right? And that makes a number of things easier for me. Then we have this idea of using apps to do that and how these apps may or may not be used for contact tracing. And so that's kind of my segue. I don't know if we want to get into it yet or not, but hey, I saw an opportunity.
Why not?
It's come to my attention that a number of universities are going to potentially, because it hasn't happened yet, so they could change their mind, require students to have an app on their mobile devices, basically that allows them to check in, check out of physical locations so that they can perform contact tracing across the fall semester. I don't think I'm a fan of that for a variety of reasons. What do you guys think?
My opinion still hasn't changed. I am still concerned. One, making it mandatory, I think, is wrong. I think it actually goes against the principle because naturally, when someone says you must do this, I myself, and I believe a lot of people naturally go, no. One, I'm paying for this service for the school, and so I'm paying money, and I'm going to naturally kind of rebel against me having to be mandated. If you want to positively reinforce and encourage to get people to do it, I think that's a better approach, even though I'm still not a fan because I'm worried about the stewards of the data. I'm worried about what else are they collecting. I'm worried about that data being sitting there. How do they have what's the unique identifier tying it back to me and anyone else I might come into contact with, and how that might be used against people at a later time because we just don't know. And if they start doing that, this is where for me, I believe it's going to wind up being much better because then people are going to move towards Android, and we can do some real fuckery with that. Apple doesn't allow too much fuckery, but guess what? Android does, and we can start installing, the other profiles on there, so it doesn't have anything about me, and poof, you get nothing else. I'll start saying that I'm here, but I can change my geolocation to be like in Paris. But hey, I walked into the room and I clicked check in, like you said. Yeah, but it said you were in Paris. Hey, must be something wrong with your app then. Because physically, hey, I'm here. Because you can just do so much to screw around with them, and I
for
definitely
me,
do that.
For me, I have problems along those lines, certainly. But for me, I have a little deeper problem that's a little deeper than that, in the sense that there's a number of presuppositions that have been made about how that's going to work that aren't necessarily true. So, for instance, and I told you guys about my experience with how faculty are being checked in. What if I don't have a mobile device? Not everybody does. If data is being transmitted, but I'm on a limited data plan, who's paying for that? Because it's my device, not yours. You know what I mean? And there's all these ideas that have been just taken as self-evident truths that, to me, aren't self-evidently true. And you're creating an infrastructure that forces that onto people when I'm not sure even what the problem is you're trying to solve.
Well, here's the thing. Quite a number of universities are already doing this. They're doing it under the auspices of automated check-in, right? You go to class, they have a microcell, femtocell, nanocell in that room. When you sit down, you're in there, and it basically checks you in. And they use it as the de facto proof of attendance, right? Which, there's so many ways to get around that. I can't even begin to do that, right? And but how do we just get too lazy to take attendance?
Yeah, right.
It's a false premise, right? So can I take, if university of pick a school, if they have that as their, because it's not just getting the attendance. That's the way they interface with the academics. That's the way they interface with their professors to get appointments to go see. In some cases, it's the QR code they have to check in to pay for meals and things like that, right? So it becomes an all-inclusive portal experience on your mobile device, because while everybody may not have a smartphone, we're saying that the preponderant 99% plus of the student population most likely does, right? And in some measure, it's more likely they'll have a mobile device than they'll have a computer. So can I take whatever's, because now with the latest updates to both iOS and Android, they've exposed the APIs to these potential contact tracing apps. Can the companies that have made this software for the universities as their university experience app, can they just basically hook into those APIs, and now with terms and services update that most students aren't going to read, most people aren't going to read, now can they just start getting the data? And the bigger thing to me is, why is that data important now? It's not important that we've got everybody out there protesting, standing arm in arm like we have since the dawn of time, exercising their First Amendment right. It's not like we can get COVID in a Walmart or a Target or any big box stores, but a local merchant, we can't go in there, and we've got to be thing. It's crazy. right? There's the intellectual dishonesty and a political dishonesty of what's been going on with this. So why do I need to track everybody? Right? We experience, and I'll say in the state of Virginia right now, we have experientially that it is on the downside. And if you go back and you look at Italy, because they're the closest kind of path that we're walking statistically in that path, they're saying it's almost wiped out. Right now, we're predicting the second wave. I personally think it's going to be more what we at the company I'm with, we call it the shoulder, right? Where it's not going to go back up. It's going to be a consistent thing. And when you start getting the general public, I was at the grocery store and the lady checking me out was just livid about wearing a mask and everything like that. She goes, "If you're not healthy, stay home." That's what normal people do, prior to this, right? And it's become a political issue, not a public health issue, right?
Right.
In saying that, most schools, most universities, certainly the larger ones, all have a way to already track the students and anyway, whether they're checking in or not. Can that pre-existing micro-location ability on an app be used to see if a student's out there protesting against something that might be abhorrent to the university? Right?
Absolutely.
Those are, yes, on the hey, I can be a miscreant and misdirect everybody as to where I'm at. That's not a hard task. There's YouTube videos of plenty on how to do that if you don't understand that already. I'm not worried about my ability to trick the system, right? What I'm worried about is a largely trusting population, which are the students of that school, whether they're trusting just by design or because they paid there and they're saying, well, if you don't do this, we can't get your attendance and you won't get credit, right? So it's like you're forcing them to do it because you're not having another option for them. What do you do with that data? And then where's the extent, what are the extensible boundaries of how that collection of your location is had?
Right.
That's where do you go when you're off campus?
Okay, so
and there's other ways that they can do this. Like they don't have to get into that point. If they're only worried about when you're on campus, like which you could, to me, that's to the extent of their possibility of using the service. I could just collect the data from the attendance record, the getting the school, the lunch, the dinner, the whatever, and go, okay, did anyone come in contact? It sounds too Big Brotherish, and it goes, and it's not. The university shouldn't be going that far because now I'm getting geolocation data all the time at that point, and I think it's an abuse of their position.
So let me give you guys an idea that I have, because here's the other problem I have. This contact tracing solution, at least the one that I'm being exposed to, an idea, doesn't address anybody that's not a student, which there's a lot of people that come onto campus that aren't students.
Right.
And what, they magically are immune and don't carry? Of course not. That's silly. It's nonsense, right? So how about this? This is actually the problem I have at a business level. Why I think this is a bad business decision for universities. Because now you're subscribing to something else. It's costing more money. You have to roll this out and manage it. There's more people involved. And it's just, why are you spending money when you don't have to? Here's why you don't have to. This is my RFID card that allows me to badge into every single room on campus that I have access to. And this already exists. They already have the tracking for it. And so you know where I am by day, by time, by building, by room. And so if you really wanted to solve a problem, which is the spread of a disease, why not just lock all the buildings, which automatically they are between certain hours and certain days, but just keep them locked. Now visitors can't come and go, so you've handled that part of the problem, and you're able to trace where I'm at without adding any additional infrastructure or invading anybody's privacy, because we all already have these. And you have to badge in. So here's what you have to know about High Point. This is actually really cool. This actually works throughout the whole city. So there's restaurants, shops, Target, everything I can go to, I can use this. And it's like a disposable debit card where you can deposit money into an account and it's available on this. So most of us, when we're in the city, or especially on campus, because the campus is cash free, there's nowhere that takes cash. You only can use that card. That's it. So you already have the mechanism to do it. I don't understand why all this other stuff's being added, which doesn't address a huge part of the problem. Or maybe you're not trying to solve that problem, right?
Right. That's when you were saying that, that's where my head was running. I go, so what's the real end goal?
Yeah. Yeah,
You
well,
know?
for me, and this is just me, when I start seeing the healthcare provider being involved in this, listen, call me cynical. I don't think you're really trying to provide health. I think you're trying to control liability.
Yes.
I could be wrong. I don't think I am, but
we in general have had that discussion, whether it's about when you go to the doctor and they prescribe drugs to you, what are they doing? They're prescribing it off a table or a list that has been approved by the lawyers, that it shields them from the most liability. Right?
Yeah, well, and the deeper problem I have is, so I started as a bio pre-med major in undergrad, so I have a good deal of like microbiology training. I worked in a micro lab for several years, and so the idea that if you're really concerned about the transmission of disease, one of the first things you ought to be controlling is cross-contamination. And every time I see somebody with gloves and a mask on touch something, and then touch themselves or something, and right, dude, that
every time you change the environment, you're supposed to change gloves.
That's right.
You know,
that's right.
And it's funny, the grocery store argument, right? If I pick up a can of soup, I'm supposed to take off the glove, put a new one on.
Yeah.
Right, and then to pick up the next item. This, you hate to be the cynical one, but at some point, this is about control. This isn't about public health policy or anything else.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and I think this is where the three of us agree in our dissent in these ways. Because look, man, if there really is a problem, I want to solve it. Like I like solving problems. What I don't like is nonsense.
Yeah.
So I don't know if either of you looked at this, but there's a direct conflict with even having to wear a mask in public. So I have concealed carry permit. If I have my firearm on me, I am not allowed to wear a mask. It's a felony.
Right. And it's funny because there's governors out there that are just hand waving that, saying, well, we understand. And, the whole thing is, it's just gotten, it's bordering on ludicrous in a lot of ways. That's the problem is, and this is the bigger issue, is we started out with, hey, 2 weeks, then flatten the curve, then it was this, then it was that, now it's phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. At some point, the average American has just lost sight of the target.
Yep.
Right? And that's when civil unrest starts happening, right, on this issue or any issue. Like, all of a sudden, you don't understand anymore why the government is telling you to do what you're doing. And in the case of Virginia, when they started opening up the restaurants and all the shops and everything, and as part of the phase 1, phase 2, the governor was asked how he was going to enforce it, and he was very delicate about saying that they're not going to use the police. Well, what they're doing now is using the health departments, right? Because they'll go in and bully the business owner, and as opposed to, because during the lockdown, there were certain businesses that were like, no, we're staying open. So you can't. Well, the police are like, they come back with a warrant, and then we'll close down. Well, you can't produce it on something that's not a law.
Right.
And so once people lose sight of that, and it's anything in life, right? Once I lose trust in anything, whether it's other folks, but in public institutions, here's my long-term problem. So 2 years from now, we actually have the plague or something like it. It's a dire public health crisis. How many people are going to be like, nope, you fooled me once before, you're not going to fool me again?
Yeah, Chicken Little.
A lot.
Right? Yeah, a lot.
I think a significant majority.
Right. Are they wrong? Right? This goes back, like we were talking, before we went on air, we were talking about all the protesting and the whole Floyd thing and all that other thing. It's like, you can't, as somebody who has the public trust, once you abuse it, the consequences for your actions should be dire.
Yeah.
Right. And the dire consequences of this action of people largely not believing this is an important thing to deal with anymore is what happens when there's actually something that's really important. Right.
Yeah,
that's
right.
in my mind, that's really going to be the true test of the metal. And in today's world, Americans just don't have the tolerance for that kind of stuff. They're like, hey, you've impeded my life and the economy for 3+ months now. What do I have to show for it? And
right.
that's, You can't just look. It's not binary of, hey, we're protecting somebody. It's what's the reality and what are the agreed upon numbers, right? And we keep throwing out muddled statistics and everything like that, so that the public's off guard and can't come up with a definitive answer. Right?
Yeah.
That public eroding that public trust in anything is largely where the bigger problem is going to be on the back end of all of this, when we actually do have a reason to really be aggressive about trying to contain a bad situation.
Yeah. Well, because unfortunately, a huge side effect, the way I see it, is this type of behavior reinforces that binary famine thinking, or
Right.
zero sum thinking. Like you can take, I'm not falling on one side or the other. I'm pointing out an observation here. Okay, like the whole Black Lives Matter versus All Lives Matter argument. Like, why is it one or the other, people? It's not. It's not zero sum. Like, these lives can matter, and these other lives can matter. And if one matters, it doesn't mean the other one can't. Like, you're just making a statement. These lives matter. It's not at the cost of the other lives. And to think that it does really is just emotional. It goes back to what we talked about for the last several episodes, right? It's people being emotional and not stopping to think.
It is emotional, and that's the aspect of when I talk about leading with empathy. When the people are saying that it's the people who respond with, well, all lives matter. I'm like, well, you're not showing empathy to the situation, and that's because it is emotional. I mean, that's all what empathy is. Just be cognizant of your surroundings. You have a particular community that is suffering, and they have been suppressed, and they have I've never felt racism in my entire life. I've witnessed it happen to others, but I personally haven't. I've said some I can get away with saying to a police officer when he pulls me over, such as, hey, do you know why I pulled you over? Yeah. Well, why is that? Well, because you need a contribution to the governor's re-election fund. Like, I can say things like this and not have to worry about it. I've also witnessed, a good friend, her husband, who's a neurosurgeon, 6'6", black guy, 300 pounds, wear the taillight out, and having to be handcuffed and pulled out of the car, even for being polite, just because they felt he was a threat. So, and that's kind of where I go. It's when we're leaders, you show empathy to the situation. We all know all lives matter, but be empathetic, to these people, because as a white man, I've never felt racism in this country. Other countries, yes, but in this country, I've never personally felt it once.
Well, the famine zero sum thinking is dangerous because, as T pointed out, there's very little things other than computers that are truly binary. Right?
Absolutely true.
Most things are on some slide continuum of this or that, right, and in between, and it's horribly complex.
It is, but and that's the whole point. Emotions aren't necessarily logical. You don't know how someone's going to respond.
And emotions serve a purpose, just not like in when you're trying to erect and maintain social systems. Like I want to be emotional about my wife, right? That's a good thing. I don't want to be emotional about should we contact trace students and force them to install this stuff. Like that's not a time to be emotional.
Yeah, like this cat on Facebook basically called my mom a racist. Because I said, hey, listen, pal, you should be careful who you call a racist. So why don't you come down off your perch from Chicago down here to Indiana, and we can have this conversation in person. You feel me, internet tough guy? His response, well, you seem like a reasonable fellow. I'm like, yeah, so do you. Just because someone responds with, well, but all lives matter, doesn't mean they're a racist. It means they may not. It's already difficult, I think, for white people to talk about racism as in general, but it's because they've never felt it, and I can understand that because I've never felt it. My young guy that works for me, he was going to come on the Lair to kind of talk about some of the things, young black guy, and all of a sudden he backed out. He's like, I just don't feel comfortable now, and I get it. I feel perfectly comfortable, but he's like, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know who's going to see this, and now all of a sudden this could be used against me. I'm like, no, we're just talking about how this is affecting you and what your parents have done to continue to educate you and to see you advance. No
Right.
longer felt comfortable.
That's unfortunate, man.
Yeah, it is, and which I understand, and I hope he'll come on another time. But it's I just get back to it's the only thing I can do is provide empathy to the people. It wasn't right what happened. I don't think anyone has said, well, George Floyd deserved what happened. No way. I've never heard anyone say that.
I'll go one step farther. And this goes back to, we were talking a little bit about this off air. Anybody who has ever been taught how to take somebody into custody, whether it's military, when you're on the battlefield or in the battle space, or when it's public servants in law enforcement, the first rule you're taught is once that person is in custody, it's your responsibility to tend to their well-being, right? And if you ask, there's nobody on earth that says kneeling on a dude's neck for a protracted period of time is the right way to go, right? And so that in and of itself is egregious, even if the consequences weren't as extreme as him dying, right? That is not the way to properly tend for somebody's well-being while they're in custody. You put people in restraints and handcuffs for their own safety, not for yours, right? So that they can't make a bad decision when they're in custody, right? That paradigm has been flipped to say, I'm putting you in custody because I'm scared of what you might do to me, right? It's not the way to look at it. It's like, how can you de-escalate the situation, right? To the part where you can have a conversation with the person and say, we're going to do this in an adult fashion. And yes, I'm going to restrain you, and here's why. And you explain it. And there's ways to do it that are not basically boot heeling somebody's neck. I got less of a problem with that guy. And I don't mean this in a he should be doing it. He's going to get what he deserves. He was completely and 100% wrong. I got a bigger problem with the three other dudes that are standing around, watch it happen and not say anything, right?
Yeah.
And people get mad at me when I say this. Those three guys were the guards at Auschwitz.
Yep.
Yeah.
100%.
Right? They were sitting there watching, that concept of if you see bad or abhorrent behavior in the planet and you just allow it to go on, you're a bigger part of the problem. Yeah. Right? And that right there, the concept is this. If you don't want to erode confidence in public officials and the public trust, and I don't care whether it's the governors that are, there's no consistent voice and behavior of how we should act with COVID. And in law enforcement, I think the way to get a handle on this is you make Will Smith said it right. We're not witnessing more racism. We're just videoing now, right? And if we've cracked the body cam technology, if all of a sudden magically your body cam is off every time there's a violent act, no, sorry. Right.
It's funny how all of those things happen, right? It's statistically impossible, right? So if you're in a position to hold the public trust, right, and you are malfeasant up to and including the tragic things that happened last week, the consequences need to be extreme, right? Because how do you keep the public trust that you're above that behavior? Right? That if something does happen, that the first thing to think is, no, he was killed because of something malfeasant. And that's where people run to. And when people run to that, it erodes confidence in the system. Right? Right now, the bulk of folks that have passed away because of COVID in Virginia or in New York have been elderly, and they've been in assisted living facilities or healthcare facilities. And the assisted living facility, are you kidding me? We've got, when it's over 70% in some cases, what are we doing? Right? How do and the quicker we erode that public trust, the easier it is to get to chaos.
Yeah, well, it in fact, the way I look at it is a lot of these things revolve around a similar or identical principle, which is I know, Dan, you've heard me talk about this before. This is the problem I have with the culture in cyber that worships Sun Tzu, the art of war. because they misappropriate the context of a lot of the quotes, and they use it as a way to adversarialize others, right? And this is a consequence of famine thinking. It's me versus them all the time, and I have to get mine because if you get it, I can't have it. And when you do that, it creates this friction and this stress, and then it becomes very easy to slip into Auschwitz guard mode, right? That's what opens that pathway up psychologically, because it's me versus them. I have to do this or I'm not going to be able to exist. Well, okay, psychologically, I can understand why somebody would make certain decisions when they're at that point. But to me, that's why you can't punish somebody after the fact. You have to change the core culture that's allowing it to happen. And when you let those three dudes off at the same level or lighter than the guy that actually did it, that's what you're doing. You're saying, hey, look, if you see this and you don't do something, yeah, maybe we'll prosecute you, but if you're not held to an even higher standard as an observer, then that's what you get. This is exactly a result of that.
Well, if you have that level of accountability for basically heinous acts like happened last week, then when an officer is accused of any kind of malfeasance, low grade or not, it becomes easier to defend that officer, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I'll see. So you have what I call the brotherhood mentality, right? Yeah. The brotherhood mentality, whether it's in the SEAL community, whether it's in the police or any tribe that has some measure of the public trust in their core being or core existence, I should say. The brotherhood, its intent, certainly 30 plus years ago, was to help those in that group when they're down.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. You're always looking after each other, right?
Yep.
In my experience, that a lot of times the brotherhood's used as a weapon, right? And it's used as a weapon to justify bullying people into covering up for malfeasance, right? That if you see wrong and you don't call people out on it, that now you're going to be marginalized, right? And that is, that's the other piece of this puzzle, right? That you've got to go, hey, look, what you're doing is not even remotely consistent with quality human behavior.
Yeah.
That, and this is the one where you start driving it. I think one of the things that has further separated us into racial and socioeconomic groups is hyphenated Americanism. You're African American, you're Italian. No, you're an American, right? Yeah. The quicker you get to that, and you know how I know we're Americans? Because toddlers and young children don't look at that, right?
Right.
They don't look at that and go, they run to each other, right? Because they're of similar age and they're in the same tribe, they're in the same school, right? So where they learn it from adults. I know this is this is a drum that gets beaten all the time. But if you want to separate people into socioeconomic groups and racial groups and then pit them against each other, we've done a really good job of that, right? And then that causes everybody to defend their position.
Yep.
And then you can't act with empathy. More importantly, the other half of that corollary is from leadership is I need to have empathy, but I also need to provide accountability, right? Because accountability provides the guardrails of normal behavior, or of acceptable behavior. I shouldn't say normal, of acceptable behavior, right? And, we talk a lot about that in leadership seminars and everything else, but we talk about it under the guise of age groups, right? People in their 50s and 60s that typically are C-level folks saying, I can't work with millennials, right? Well, what you're really saying is, I don't want to try to walk across the road and meet somebody halfway or step into their side of the road and try to feel who they are, what they are. And go, okay, right. I understand that these things have all been wrong. We're going to work to fix that. And we're going to give you the tools to be successful, especially like in an employment situation. Hey, we hired you and it's on us now because we were functionally unaware that you didn't possess this skill set. So we're going to put everything in your path to help you with success. But at the end of it, you have to exercise some accountability and hold yourself responsible for this.
Yep. Well, and that's a great point in terms of the aspect from employment, and I think in anything in leadership. The idea of leading with empathy is also about predicting the future needs of your employer, employees, and if you're in government, it should be about your constituents. You're supposed to be predicting these things, and the only way you can do that is to figure out how to relate with them.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's the hard part, because in any workforce today, there's many generations. I mean, you've got the outlier in UTK who's 250 years old, and then you've got the people that are in their early 20s. I mean, that's a huge gap.
But let me ask you a quick question about that. How do you deal with ravishing, good-looking gentlemen like myself?
No,
I just look in the mirror and say, what would I want?
Oh man!
So,
hey, we almost made it a whole episode.
Yeah, well,
I gotta put myself in timeout for a second.
The part that TK can't handle is when you indulge in these types of things, Jason.
Hey, sometimes the little imp on my left shoulder wins.
Yeah.
Hey, they said the key to being a successful life is letting the good side win out 51% of the time.
That's right.
That's right. Boring.
I'm not saying I do it. I'm just saying that's what I've heard. That's the key to getting that done.
Yeah, it makes sense in principle.
A friend told me.
Yeah,
man.
exactly. Yeah, I was at a seminar. I heard that's the thing to do.
What's the chicken update?
Oh, do you want some farm updates? Because I'm gonna have to go here in a couple minutes. Let's start with what's adjacent to me. My mealworm farm, performing fantastically, man. Almost all of my larvae converted to pupa stage, and now I have lots of mature, what are called darkling beetles. So when they first go from pupa to beetle, they're like a light yellow, and then they kind of go orange. And they're sexually mature when they're all black. And now there's tons of black beetles in there. They're burrowing around. I got some carrots in there because they hop on carrots when you break big carrots apart, and that's how they extract water. Man, there's a lot of activity in there. So that's up and running. It's looking good. On the chicken front, not so good. We have a hawk in the area now. And within the last 3 days, we've lost 3 chickens.
You obviously didn't watch Looney Tunes when you were a kid, did you, with the chicken hawk?
Yeah. Well, hey, man.
I say boy. No, I say boy.
So we're in
what's
the
going to
midst
help
of
scare away the hawk? You got to get. Does the donkey help with that?
No, man. Donkeys and alpacas are good for land predators like foxes and coyotes, and raccoons, which we have plenty around here. So that may still come up. You're in a bad spot right now because the roosters aren't mature, and that's what would protect the hens from birds, right? Other birds.
Yeah,
and
sure.
so
one of the protected hawks,
It is, so I can't blast it. Well, I mean, you could blast it.
It's not going to solve your problem.
Yeah, I mean, I could blast it, or somebody could blast it. You're just gambling at that point.
Well, it's not. Well, it's a protected animal for a reason. Like, I'm not a big believer in whacking other beings, but at some point.
Yeah, well, so people understand. So, like, deer here are because I'm on USDA zoned properties. I can shoot deer whenever I feel like it, with no consequence, because they're classified as a pest, and they are. Yeah, right. And so, like, even if you want to hunt it, if it's on your land, you just need tags. You don't need a license. If you're shooting them and just disposing of it, you can just shoot them and dispose of it. You don't, right? They're a pest. Same thing with groundhogs, right? I can just blast groundhogs all day long. But this hawk is a protected hawk, so even if it's a pest, which it is because it's killing my chickens, you can't blast it. So we got some owl decoys now. We've put up like owl statues, which will kind of help keep the hawk away. We're going to deploy some aluminum tape, which reflects up into the hawk's eyes, and it's supposed to help like disorient it and keep it from dive bombing. I mean, this hawk now is so brazen. Listen, we were over at the cousin's house last night. We had a little barbecue, so we had hamburgers and stuff like that. And one of the little kids left their cheeseburger out on the front porch when they ran in to get a toy, and we all saw it. This hawk came down, stole the cheeseburger, and flew off.
He's probably going to die. He's probably going to die in a week from eating it anyway now. So maybe the problem's taken care of it.
I don't know, man, but this dude has a taste for meat now, and he knows where to come get it. So we got a problem. So we're kind of in that in-between stage because our roosters aren't mature. The roosters, typically what they'll do is they'll sound the alarm. All the hens will run into the hen house, and then the hawk can't get them. Come to find out, and I didn't know this, interestingly enough, the rooster will sacrifice itself. Like it'll go fight the hawk and I'm not going to say but it's okay being killed by the hawk to protect the hen. That's an interesting behavior I didn't know about.
I dig that.
Yeah. There's something a little noble about it, right?
Yeah.
But unfortunately, our roosters are like this big. Like they're not even close to being mature yet. Yeah, I don't know, man.
See, life always revolves back to Looney Tunes.
It does, doesn't it? It does.
You got to get Foghorn Leghorn out there and start protecting the ladies.
Yeah. So that's where we're at with the farm update.
What kind of hawk is it?
Dude, I don't know.
It's a chicken hawk, obviously. It's eating chicken.
It's a well-fed hawk. It's a well-fed hawk. He's had a cheeseburger and 3 chicken breasts. Then I mean,
it's clearly overindulging, and it should just have a conversation with it.
Yeah, we should sit down and be like, hey, listen, every 2 weeks I'll give you 1 chick if you don't fly around and steal other chicks.
Yeah.
You think it'll work?
Yeah.
No.
So I don't know, man. We'll have to see. Going into it, that this is the kind of stuff that can happen.
Yeah, it's true.
It is pretty cool. I mean, you think about just, circle of life type stuff, that, hey, look, this is what the world does.
I'll tell you, man. It's a fabulous way to teach a 5-year-old about the natural order of things. And luckily she really enjoys taking care of the chicks and the gardening and stuff like that, but she hasn't gotten emotionally attached to them, which is interesting. And so she's participated in all this. It's kind of cool because she understands in a 5-year-old way, like, oh, this is just natural, man. And, and I even pointed out to her at one point, like, you like eating chicken nuggets. These are going to be the chicken nuggets pretty soon. And she was like, oh, yeah, I get it. She told me the other day, she's like, can you teach me how to shoot a gun? I'm like, well, I mean, a little bit. I know how to shoot a simple hunting rifle.
Good girl.
And I'm like, why? Check this out. I don't know where she picked this up from because I think she heard me talking about hunting one time. She's like, well, because I want to go shoot deer. I'm like, well, do you want to eat them? And she's like, no, that's gross. But I want to kill it so you can eat it. Okay.
Again, killing it and dropping it quick. I mean, venison is good.
Oh, dude, I like it, man. I really like it.
Dude, so, I found this place on the internet where they'll ship elk, antelope. Mm-hmm. I'm like,
Yeah. So we'll see, man.
Home on the range.
Yeah.
Where the deer and the antelope play.
Yeah.
When I was,
I can only find elk. I can only find like elk or something like that in is a ground meat. But this place offers it like in fillets, and I'm
loins and everything like that.
Yeah,
mm-hmm. Yeah.
I have a butcher friend of mine I've been going to him for 30 years, and one of the ways he makes a lot of money during hunting season is the guys will bring in the field dressed deer, and he'll basically process the deer and give it back to him. And I know a lot of these guys are my buddies that go out and they'll do it. And over the years, I've gotten them to basically give me a little bit of the deer. And I go, whose deer is it? And, oh, it's Kyle's deer. I'm like, oh, he won't mind. And he's like, well, I'm going to have to tell him. I'm like, oh, well, call him right now. And when you're talking a pound or two on a mature 180, 200 pound big animal, right? It's whatever,
Right.
You look at, like, you go to Germany, there's, they raise deer like we raise cattle here.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
The same with ostrich.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think we've talked about this on the show before. Ostrich they're mean.
Yeah, they're actually pretty dangerous.
They'll beak you. They'll spit at you. I mean, they're like,
Yeah. So we'll see, man. When I was up in Ohio,
ruin your day quick.
Yeah. When I was up in Ohio recently, I brought my BB gun home because I figured it's a decent way to start with her, so she'd get used to holding something that has a little weight to it and pulling a trigger, and there's not like a huge consequence to a mistake.
Well, and understanding muzzle discipline.
Yeah.
Simple things you don't want to die.
Yeah. So like yesterday, we were shooting little soda cans.
Nice. That's good. That is good country fun in an afternoon. Is getting out there with your BB gun and getting after it.
Yeah. Well, like growing up, I had a 22. I still have it. I used to love going with my dad and my brother out to the woods, and they would go hunt squirrels and rabbits, and I would just shoot targets, man. Yeah. And that was the nice thing about a 22. It's cheap as shit to shoot,
Yeah.
But it's still a gun, So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if we progress to that level. She talks about a bow and arrow sometimes too, which I think would be interesting.
Get her with a crossbow.
She wants a
Proper bow and arrow. That's
Yeah.
it. You know, you're talking about.
She saw Brave, and that's what the girl had, right?
You talk about the sport of hunting. You know, if you're going to say it's you and your wits against the animal,
Yeah.
go shoot some bows and arrows.
Oh yeah,
Right. Because I always say, like, you know, any guy like me, even I don't shoot that much anymore, but you get me warmed up with a match grade rifle with a pretty high powered scope, and it's not a sport, right? It's you have the decided advantage over the animal.
Right. You become the little hand of God, right?
Right. It's like was it like Ron White when he used to talk about like the deer, that elusive creature? You know, the guy's like his brother-in-law talks about it. You know, all the magic in the forest, and he's like, yeah, I hit it with my car. You know, they're paralyzed by headlights. You know.
Yeah,
right.
And if you're going to do the bow and arrow, do the recurve bow.
Yeah.
Getting a compound bow. That's a lot easier. But
no, man, if I did it,
like really.
Yeah, if I did it, I would do a longbow recurve bow.
Yeah.
You go old school Robin Hood on them, and
yeah. We'll see, man. But
start talking in Old English. Stop! So I made raid knee.
Yeah. Well, it's like with anything. Like if you're going to use a bow, I mean, if you were really serious about hunting with bow and arrow, you better be shooting that bow like 50 times a day.
Oh, at least,
yeah. That's not an easy feat.
No.
I don't know. We'll find out, man. I don't know. We'll see where this goes. So we got the chickens going. We got the garden's doing great now. I mean, a lot of stuff got wiped out with that tropical storm not too long ago, but we replanted. We've eaten fresh strawberries every day. My kale and my lettuce is fantastic.
Nice.
The tomatoes are okay. We had to replant the peppers after that rain, so we'll see if they come back. All my peppers. I mean, my sweet peppers all the way up to those reapers. But just keep plugging away, my friends.
Awesome.
Cool.
All right, guys. I'm going to go take a hike with the kids.
Have fun, everyone.
All right. Have a great
Enjoy
week.
your weekend. Enjoy your week.
Yep. Take care, everybody.
See ya.
Cheers. Bye-bye.